Good evening and welcome to Lisk Updates live from the Lisk Center Berlin. My name is Kordek, CEO and co-founder of Lisk. And tonight I'm going to be also your host and moderator. The current situation with COVID-19 made it impossible for us to host a Lisk.js this year. But we hope to bring back the usual format back to you next year. Further, it's of great importance to me that the team stays healthy and safe. That's why we have followed all regulations to be fully compliant with the COVID-19 guidelines. The current situation shows even more how important it is for people to socialize. We at Lisk, we don't only want to bring blockchain to the digital world. We also want to bring blockchain and Lisk to the real world to facilitate human interactions. That's why we have created the Lisk Centers, a place to connect, a co-working space and an event location, all in one. A place where developers can connect and which is dedicated to pushing forward the Lisk ecosystem and building a developer community. We have one Lisk Center in Utrecht, which is managed by the Musti team. Here we see one picture, one photo of a meetup which happened before at the Lisk Center Utrecht. I was also there. We also have another one, Lisk Center in Tokyo, which is managed by Binary Star. And here is another meetup which was organized there in the past. These two Lisk Centers shown us what tremendous value meeting in real life brings, and they have inspired us to open up a third one, a Lisk Center in Berlin. Later on, Monica will introduce the Lisk Center Berlin, in which I'm standing in right now, and I can't wait for you to see what we have created just for the Lisk community. Lisk is a project from developers to developers. So it always has been very important to us to keep you up to date with the latest development updates and the latest development progress. As you know, Lisk is big on JavaScript, and I'm so happy that we made that decision 5 years ago. For the 8th time in a row, JavaScript was voted in as the most popular programming language in the world. And our development achievements this year don't have to shy away from that. We had over 2,600 Lisk SDK downloads on NPM alone. On all GitHub repositories, we had over 19,500 commits. And we implemented successfully 35 libs into our code base. In fact, this makes Lisk one of the most actively developed blockchains in the entire industry. And the source we have taken for that does not even include the development activities of our latest product, Lisk Service. Later today, one of our lead backend developers will enter the stage to tell you more about the changes which came this year to the Lisk SDK and shows you some of the new features of Lisk Core. In order to grow a developer community, we have created the Lisk Builders program, a program which incentivizes developers to build proof-of-concept blockchain applications. We have established this program last year, exactly 1 year ago, at Lisk.js 2019. And since then, over 60 candidates applied, and we have chosen 18 proof-of-concept blockchain applications to be built. But that's not all. The Lisk community, you, have been extremely active in building proof-of-concept blockchain applications. And I can't wait to see what's coming next year. In order to show you how easy it is to build a blockchain application with the Lisk SDK, one of our lead backend developers, Manu, will enter the stage and have a live coding session in which he will build a non-fungible token blockchain application right in front of your eyes. After him, we will have 2 videos by the Lisk community. The first one is from Endro about the Arcado network, and the second one is from Fernando about the FIT project. I've not seen these 2 videos yet myself, so I'm really excited what they want to show us. And after that, it's all about interoperability. How long have I waited for this moment to stand on stage and announce such a topic? Let's go back in time. Here's a screenshot from our website, lisk.io, back in February 2016, so over 4.5 years ago. And even though the whole terminology changed, the vision still stands true. And it makes me really proud to say that we stick to our promises and we are delivering one after another. Later, our research scientist, Alessandro, will take the stage and show you much more and gives you a first glimpse into Lisk Interoperability. So that's the agenda for tonight. I hope you have a great time. And after all the presentations, we will have a live Q&A session. So make sure to ask your questions on YouTube and Crowdcast so that we can see them and sort them to be answered later on. For the best asked questions, we have also prepared a goodie bag with Lisk merchandise inside. So this one you definitely need to get. Perfect. Then let's welcome our first speaker to the stage. Monica will introduce the Lisk Center Berlin. Thank you.
Thank you, Max, and hello, everyone. My name is Monica. I'm the marketing lead here at Lisk. Tonight, I'm very excited to finally be able to reveal the Lisk Center Berlin, our biggest marketing effort this year. But first, I would like to quickly walk you through the Lisk centers around the world. Back in 2018, Lisk Center Utrecht was opened. There was a community effort. Since then, the team in the Netherlands did a tremendous job. They organized offline and online meetups. They also gathered businesses and local developers. They organized brainstorming sessions. And most importantly, they also contributed to building blockchain applications. But let's hear more about their achievements directly from the team in the Netherlands.
Hi, my name is Jurre, and together with Rafael and Sander, we formed the Moosty team, a multidisciplinary project team focusing on blockchain development. We make sure that Lisk Center Utrecht can be used as a co-workspace to meet like-minded people and to learn from each other. Lisk Center started as a community-based initiative back in 2018, funded through the Lisk community itself and the Lisk Foundation. By organizing regular meetups, connecting local businesses and building up communities, we stimulate blockchain innovation in the Utrecht region and the Netherlands. So far, we have organized over 100 meetups where we introduced the community to a wide scale of blockchain topics. Our community consists of startups, local entrepreneurs, and project teams, and sometimes they join together and build a project with the community. Several projects have been built so far, like Lisk DAO, the Lisk Bike, and Lisk Ticketing. Right now, we are working together with a local corporation to build a platform to stimulate healthy behavior with the use of tokenization. We are using Lisk blockchain technology for the platform. After 2 years of hard work, we can proudly say that Lisk Center Utrecht is an important actor in the Dutch blockchain ecosystem. The result of a collaboration between the Lisk community and the Lisk Foundation. We are looking forward to working closely together with the Lisk Center Berlin in the near future.
Thanks, Jurre. You guys did an amazing job in the Netherlands for the local community, and we are also very excited for further collaborations in 2021. Speaking about the community, biggest part of our community comes from Japan. Therefore, we wanted to create a space for them directly in Tokyo, where they can meet, they can attend and host events. They can also plan projects, interesting projects in Japan. Therefore, this year, we partner with Binary Star, a business hub in Tokyo. Let's hear more about the Lisk Center Tokyo, straight from the Binary Star team.
Hi, my name is Hayate Matsuzaki, Incubation Manager at Binary Star. Today, I'd like to welcome you to Lisk Center Tokyo. Well, Lisk Center Tokyo is located inside of Binary Star, which is a blockchain business hub. Now, let me show you around. So this is our event hall that accommodates more than 250 people. We look forward to holding Lisk events after all this COVID situation is over. And before it stables, maybe we can have an online event very soon. Also, Lisk community members are invited to use the co-working space and the tatami room. For free. So, as a blockchain business hub, we at Binary Star look forward to collaborating with Lisk through our communities and with further business development inside of Japan. I can't wait to have this COVID situation over and finally meet you guys in person. Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.
Many thanks to the Binary Star team. We are very grateful for the partnership with you, and we are also looking forward to organizing online and offline events for the Japanese market. Now, it became clear for us that we need to create a space for German community. Therefore, we decided to build Lisk Center Berlin, a co-working space here in Berlin. I want to take this opportunity to thank our team here at Lightcurve for their effort in helping us build Lisk Center Berlin, as well as the team at Lisk Center Utrecht for their support and advice. As you probably remember, last year at Lisk.js, Max and Oliver were talking about the plans for Lisk in 2020. That's when Lisk Center Berlin was first mentioned. As Max said, Lisk Center Berlin is a space dedicated to building. It's a space where we organize hackathons, meetups, workshops, where developers can work together, and much more. Since then, we did a lot of work. We worked on the idea, we also worked on the concept, on furniture, on branding and design. So let me walk you through Lisk Center Berlin in detail. Lisk Center Berlin is located in Mitte, very close to Alexanderplatz. I like to think that Lisk Center is very accessible, is very well connected to public means of transport. It's also located in a hip area, very close to nice bars, restaurants, clubs, perfect to spend your evening next to Lisk Center Berlin. Moreover, Lisk Center is also located in a historical building. 300 square meter area is located at the ground floor, straight at the main street, where people walk by every day. We really hope to attract as many developers as possible inside the Lisk Center. So, why would community members join Lisk Center? What are the benefits? Lisk Center is a space dedicated to learning, not only about Lisk, but also about blockchain. It's for building production-ready blockchain applications. It's also for inspiring new developers by showing them what has been done so far. Lisk Center is, of course, an event location for meetups like this one, for hackathons, for workshops, and of course, if you are thinking to join Lisk Center, you can always enjoy a coffee or tea here in the lounge area together with other community members. Besides this, we also have several focus areas for brainstorming, for coding, for building blockchain applications. So let me walk you through each room in the space. The open space, that's the main room that you see once you walk in. It's basically the first step in the journey towards learning about Lisk. You can learn about Lisk by using the visual equipment, by using the Lisk experience table, where you can check the Lisk product, you can play around with the Lisk wallet, you can also check the applications that were built until now. You can also, if you like, to play with the 3D printer, for example. Of course, you can also work here. You can pick a space, either the window side or one of the tables available. As I mentioned, as you see in the photo, the lounge area is amazing. You can have a coffee, you can interact with other developers. As you see, we have a stage. You can host your own event or you can attend events. We tried to make this place playful, accessible, and pleasant, but still to keep the Lisk branding and the colors. My favorite, actually, in the open space is the bright blue Lisk logo. You can see it directly from the street. Everyone who walks by will see the Lisk logo, will be interested to come in. And look at these two bright yellow phone booths, perfect for private calls. The next room is the working space. It's a space dedicated for working, as the name says. It's perfect for just plugging in your laptop and start coding. It's also great for brainstorming ideas of blockchain applications or small-sized workshops. The room contains 6 fully equipped working desks. You can just plug in your laptop, as I said, and start building. As you see, each room has a Lisk-branded illustration. I love them. Last, the meeting room. This meeting room is actually made for conducting meetings, either with your team or with businesses. You can also organize workshops as well, or brainstorming sessions. And in the evening, you can play ping pong or board games. What's great about this room is that the conference table is actually a ping pong table. And I'm super excited to play with you guys ping pong, or just spend some evening together and play board games. So let's talk a bit about our plans for Lisk Center Berlin in 2021. Once the restrictions are over, we plan to increase our developer community by using the Lisk Center Berlin. And how do we plan to do it? Well, we would like to host external developer meetups, which means the JavaScript, TypeScript meetups taking place in Berlin. We would like to host them here. This way, all the developers will know about Lisk. We would also want to organize workshops and hackathons to show people what they can do with the Lisk SDK. And therefore, we also want to inspire the newcomer developers, showing them what they can build with the Lisk SDK. what else we want to do is to keep our already strong community up to date. We would like to host Lisk meetups, like this one, where we want to update with the progress for the research and development. And we also plan to publish blog posts with updates from the Lisk Center. Moreover, we also plan to make our collaboration with the other Lisk centers around the world even stronger in 2021. If you would like to learn more about Lisk Center Berlin, you should check our webpage, lisk.io/Berlin. You will find general information about the Lisk Center, of course, the photos that you've seen already, and we will also publish the upcoming events that we plan to host next year at Lisk Center Berlin. We plan to also publish blog posts of event recaps or blog posts for the apps that were built here at Lisk Center Berlin or interviews with community members. If you are new in Berlin, you will also find recommendations to see where you will find places to see or places to eat. Thank you very much for your attention. I really hope to see you all here in 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. I can't wait to welcome you here in the Lisk Center Berlin and destroy you in ping pong. Next one up is Shu. He will tell you more about the new architecture of the latest Lisk SDK and show you some of the new features of Lisk Core.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shu. Today, I'm going to introduce our latest product, Lisk SDK 5.0 and Lisk Core 3.0. With Lisk SDK 5.0, we have completed all the implementation of the libs that was proposed, but also we have implemented With the 5.0, we are confident that our fundamental architecture is complete, and we are ready to implement a lot of blockchain features and blockchain application using SDK and extending SDK, including the interoperability that will be introduced by Alessandro later. Lisk 5.0 includes on-chain architecture, off-chain architecture, and communication architecture. And using that SDK, we have also improved our Lisk Core 3.0, which is now a command line interface, and it has a new procedure for installation, configuration, and startup. Lastly, I'll explain the current status of this release and the next steps. Let's move on to Lisk SDK 5.0. So what is Lisk SDK 5.0? So Lisk SDK is a set of libraries to create the blockchain application and surrounding tools. Within Lisk SDK, we have three main products: Lisk Commander, Lisk Framework, and Lisk Elements. Lisk Commander is the entry point for a developer into the blockchain. This feature will be implemented in coming minor releases. Lisk Framework is the package to create the blockchain application instance. Internally, it uses Lisk Elements, which is a separately installable packages. And each packages includes specific blockchain logics. And some of the package can be used to build UI products. And the main architecture is built in Lisk Framework. It is flexible by on-chain architecture. It's integrable by off-chain architecture, and it's open through communication architecture. Let's dive in a little bit more. Lisk Framework exposes application, which is umbrella for all the logics. And on one side, we have off-chain logic, which is managed by controller and implemented using plugins. On the other side, we have on-chain logic, which is managed by node and implemented using modules. But what do I mean by on-chain and off-chain? On-chain is a part of the blockchain protocol, and it introduces state mutation through block or transactions. And all the logics are verifiable by everyone by synchronizing to the blockchain. And it is handled in what we call module. On the other hand, off-chain logic is not part of the blockchain protocol. But oftentimes, to build a real web service or any other systems that uses blockchain technology, it's not really enough to only have an on-chain logic. That's why we also created this off-chain. And this is handled in what we call plugins. Let's dive into the on-chain architecture. On-chain architecture, as I said, it's handled in module. And each module, it needs to define the data structure using the account schema. And also, it needs to add the logic using lifecycle hooks. And in one module, it can have multiple transaction assets. And each asset also needs the structure to be defined, and also the execution logic. And oftentimes, the module contains important information or logic that can be used externally. That's why we also created these reducers, action, and events to communicate to outside. I'll explain piece by piece in coming slides. So the module needs to mutate the states of the blockchain. And to do that, we have prepared two states. One, account state, and another one, chain state. Account state is something that corresponds to each Lisk address. But sometimes it's not enough to just to store data into the account. That's why we also created the chain state, which stores the global information on the blockchain. But having only the data is not enough. We need to add the logic to it. So that's why we also added this module hooks. We currently have 5 hooks: before block apply, before transaction apply, apply, after transaction apply, and after block apply. When a node receives a block, after it verifies all the basic properties, it goes through each of these hooks. And when everything is successful, it will store all the mutated states and the blocks. Module has multiple assets inside. And this is basically equivalent to the custom transaction we had in the previous versions. Each asset contains a data schema and also execution logics. Reducers are a function to be exposed to the other modules. For example, our default module, token, manages the balance. But other module also needs to call or mutate the balance. That's why we need this reducer to expose some of the functionality from the modules. But module also contains the information that can be used in external systems. To expose the information to the external system, we have added this action and events. Those are information that can be used in off-chain, in plugins, or any other external systems. So in summary, modules are responsible for adding blockchain protocol logic. All logic must be deterministic. Schema are defined for storing account state. Hooks apply logic during the block lifecycle. Reducer exposes interfaces to the other modules. And action and events provides information, plugins, or external systems. We have now 4 of those default modules. Token modules, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, it manages the balance. Sequence module, it manages the nonce, which prevents the double spending. Keys module manages the signatures, especially our multi-signature scheme. DPoS module manages delegated proof of stake and chooses the block producers. But what can we build using this module? Module can define block-level logic. For example, we can implement something that executes every 100 blocks. We can implement something that invalidates a block by block header or payload. We can also include a logic which is executed per transactions. With all this feature, we can also implement something like new consensus algorithm, like proof of authority, proof of stake, or any other various DPoS implementation. But not only that, we can implement any deterministic and state changes logic, which can be NFT implementation, which Manu will explain later, or smart contract platform, or any other things. Let's talk about off-chain architecture. Off-chain architecture are some logic to improve the blockchain protocol. But because it's not blockchain protocol, it can be run in different process. So during the development, we might want to implement using the same process, but in the production, we should run in the child process. And also, plugin might contain the information that we want to use in external systems. That's why we also added action and events. So action and events are basically exactly same as the module. It is there to provide the information to external systems or external module plugins. So in summary, plugin is the way to provide off-chain logic and can be run in different processes. It is optional to run with a blockchain application, and it can expose action and events for internal data, but also it can access all the action and events registered into the module or plugin. We have now also for plugins, HTTP API plugins, which exposes basic blockchain information through REST API format, forger plugin, which tracks the forging activity, report misbehavior plugin, which observes the network and automatically detects the misbehavior and sends the transaction, monitor plugin, which we use during the QA, which tracks the node activities and exposes in Prometheus format. So what can we build using plugins? As I mentioned earlier, we have default module monitoring, but also we can observe the network or blockchain and aggregate the data and exposes calculated data to the external system to be more usable. We can do automation, something like what we do in the report misbehavior plugin. But what's more interesting is that we can build something like Oracle. The plugin can observe other web services or systems and calculate the new data, and then send those data to the blockchain through transaction. The last main thing is communication architecture. Throughout the presentation, I mentioned several times about action and events. Action and events are at the end, registered to the application, and exposes through IPC Unix socket or WebSocket. Because those two protocols are common, of course JavaScript, but all the other languages that supports those protocols can access those information. And all communication is written through in JSON RPC, so it's easy to integrate. For JavaScript user, we have updated API client. Our new API client communicates using IPC or WebSocket, but also on top of that, because our block, transaction, and accounts communicates with the binary encoded data, internally in API client, we decode those data and provide the JavaScript object to user. And also, all the actions and events which is registered to the application from modules or from plugins are all accessible through API client. So that was it for Lisk SDK. Now let's talk about Lisk Core 3.0. What is Lisk Core? Lisk Core is a blockchain application created using Lisk SDK. So in a way that Lisk Core is the first user of our Lisk SDK. It's a blockchain application that powers our Lisk mainnet and testnet and uses all the default modules that we provide in Lisk SDK, so which runs DPoS algorithm, and also internally in Lisk SDK, we implement the BFD consensus for block finality. So that is also same for Lisk Core. And it's fully written in TypeScript, and now with this version, it's also a command line interface. Installation is similar to what we had before. Binary table, Docker image, and source code. But from this version, we also provide npm installation, which means we can do something like npm install global Lisk Core. Because it's the CLI, it's really easy to start your own node. You can download Lisk Core and simply type Lisk Core start. And configuration can be done through the config file, or we provide a lot of flags to override existing configuration. So this is an example. Once we do npm install, Lisk Core command will show you all the commands that you can use. When we migrate this version to our mainnet, the minimum configuration or minimum command that you need to do is Lisk Core start, which will start your own mainnet node. In the meantime, or if you want to connect to our testing network, you can do something like Lisk Core start, -- network testnet, and also if you want to expose a WebSocket communication, you can specify API WebSocket. And there is a lot more flags for the start command, and it will be written in the help command or in our documentation. But start is not only the command that we have in Core. The Core can communicate to the local running node and manage the running node. For example, we have a blockchain and forging database export and import. We can get the account. We can also create the account. We can get the transaction, create the transaction, sign, and send to your running node. So that was it for Lisk Core. And now I'm going to explain a little bit our current status of our release. So right now, we are doing security audit with our auditor lease authority. It is scheduled to be done next month. At the same time, we are preparing our documentation for Lisk SDK 5.0 and Lisk Core 3.0. And for development, we're adding a lot more tools for Lisk SDK to build UI tools. Earlier this year, we have released BetaNet version 3, which uses Lisk SDK 3.0. This month, we released BetaNet version 4, which uses Lisk SDK 4.0. And earlier next month, we will release BetaNet version 5 with our latest SDK. Depending on the test result coming from security audit and the BetaNet, we will plan our testnet and mainnet releases. That was it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shu. Awesome. There were some announcements packed in there. So let me repeat. Our security auditor's name is Least Authority, and they will be done with their security audit still this year in December. Further, the next BetaNet version 5 will also still launch this year in December. So it's true to say that Christmas came early this year. Before we continue, a quick note to the community. We had some technical issues with YouTube and Crowdcast. It seems like that the Crowdcast service can't handle this massive setup we have provided you with. But we made some adjustments, so YouTube should work now. And hopefully everything will be lag-free from now on. Sorry for that. All right, next one up. So we really want to show you how easy it is to develop with the Lisk SDK a blockchain application. That's why Manu will now enter the stage and give you a live coding session and will develop an NFT blockchain application. Thank you, Manu.
Thank you, Max. Good evening, everyone. My name is Manu, and today I'm going to demonstrate how you can build an NFT blockchain application using our latest SDK. So, before we move on, let us first understand what is fungible and non-fungible asset. A fungible asset is something which is mutually interchangeable, like a dollar bill or a Bitcoin, whereas a non-fungible asset is something non-mutually interchangeable, like a painting from a Mona Lisa, which is unique in nature and it cannot be divided. So following are some of the characteristics of an NFT. So it is a digital token, which is unique in nature, and it is indivisible and non-mutually interchangeable, unlike the fungible tokens. So now that we understood what is a non-fungible token, so I'm going to demonstrate you building the application in 3 simple steps. So what you need is an NFT module in order to create the transaction, purchase the transaction, and then a plugin to monitor this blockchain application and collect the data and enrich the information and provide the metadata to the user interface. And finally, you integrate the NFT module, the plugin, to run the blockchain application. So let's move on to the code. In the interest of time, I have prepared the blockchain application and the front-end application to demonstrate. So as you can see, we have the create NFT transaction asset. So first, you would import the Lisk SDK library, and then extend the base asset to create your asset token. And then you need to specify the unique name and then the ID for the asset. And then provide the schema for the asset for creating the NFT token. So wherein you have the minimum purchase margin, the initiate value, and then the name of the token. So once you have defined this, you have the apply logic. As Shu earlier mentioned, we have application lifecycle events wherein the apply will process the transaction, and as you can see, it verifies if sender has a minimum balance. And then if sender doesn't have the balance, then the token will not be created. So if the sender has a balance, then the NFT token will be created by using the asset name, the owner address, and his nouns, and then the initial value of the token with the minimum purchase margin. And then the sender account will be updated with the NFT token. And finally, his account will be debited with the initial value that is being set. So as you saw, creating an NFT token was that easy. So now let's move on how you can build a purchase NFT token. In order to build the purchase NFT token, you have to follow the similar steps. You extend the base asset and then define the name and ID. As you can observe here, the ID is different. So for the create, you have ID 0, and then the ID is 1. You need to make sure the IDs for each transaction asset is unique, and then the name is also unique. And then you define the schema for purchasing the NFT. So as you can see, in order to purchase, you need to have the NFT ID defined. And then you need to specify the purchase value that you're specifying, and then the name of the token that you're purchasing. As you can see in the apply step, the NFT token will be verified for its existence. If the NFT token the purchase you're trying to purchase doesn't exist, then it will throw an error. And then you take the NFT token from the owner account and then add it to the collector account. So then finally, debit the tokens from the purchaser and debit to the artist who created the NFT. So that is all about the purchasing NFT. Now, let's see how you can integrate these two transaction assets in the NFT module. The NFT module extends the base module, and also it has the three similar things, which is the name, the ID, and then the asset schema. As you can closely observe, the ID is 1000, because up until 1000, Lisk has preserved the modules so that in the future, we're going to evolve and then build a few more modules. So the community can start building the modules from ID 1000. All this information is available in our lib. And as you can see, the transaction asset includes the two assets that we created, which is creating the NFT and purchasing the NFT. And you have actions. As Shu earlier mentioned, if an off-chain module wants to know what are the event actions going on inside the blockchain application, you could expose through the action and events. So here, one action is getting all the NFT tokens that were created. So that's all. So now you understood how you can create an NFT token, purchase the NFT token, and how you integrate these two tokens inside the module. So you could also use many other lifecycle events inside the NFT module. So now that we understood NFT module, let's move on to NFT API plugin. So what is a plugin? As Shu earlier explained, a plugin can be anything, like it can be a daemon service, a HTTP service, or a WebSocket service. For this demonstration, I have used an HTTP API service. Here, you can see the plugin was extending the base plugin, and then the base plugin wants you to implement mainly these events, actions, load, and then unload. I'm going to explain what each step does. In the load step, when the application boots up, it loads the plugin, and then when it loads, it does all of the actions that you define. In this case, an express server will be created, and then it exposes following endpoints, which can be consumed by the UI service. And it also, as you can observe, listens to the channel events, and then it can build the metadata. As you can observe here, for every block that is being created on the blockchain, it saves the transaction and saves the NFT transaction history. And I will show you how this information being used in the UI later. And finally, for all the plugins, you need to ensure that you close your, so if it is HTTP server, you close the server and handle all the closing logic in the unload. So building an NFT plugin is that easy. So now that you understand both NFT module and an API plugin, now let's move on to the index file where we integrate both the module and the plugin to run the blockchain application. In order to run the blockchain, create the blockchain application and run it, you need to first import the application from the Lisk SDK, and we also provide the configuration and the Genesis block with the default for DevNet. You could also create your own configurations and then Genesis block using our Lisk Genesis library. So as you can see, I have imported the NFT module and the API plugin that I already showed. And I'm also extending the Genesis block accounts to include the NFT attributes. And I'm modifying the application config to make sure that I have a unique name for the application, in this case, NFT app. And I am also specifying the community identifier to also mitigate the transaction replay. So once you have the Genesis config and then application config ready, then you can initialize the application with the interface default application by specifying the Genesis config and then the application config. And that gives you an application instance. If you do not want the default modules that we provide, for example, token transfer, keys module, and sequence, and many more, you could directly use the application with something like this. And then, you can specify Genesis config along with the config. And then you could take the application and then register the specific modules that you want. Let's say you want only a token transfer module and then the sequence. You don't want multi-signature, right? You could also customize like this. And this is how flexible with the new SDK. So now moving on. I'm importing the NFT module and then the plugin. And the way to register this module and plugin is using the interface register module and register plugin. So once you have registered the plugins and the modules, then you run the application with the run. And that's it. This is all you had to do to create your own custom blockchain. It could be NFT. It could be any other blockchain use cases that Shu earlier mentioned. So now, let's run the application to see in action. So I'm in the root directory, and I'm running the blockchain application. So as you can see, the blockchain application is now forging and then creating the blocks every 10 seconds, right? And now I'm going to start the front-end application to demonstrate how you could create and then create the NFT token and purchase the NFT token. I also created some of the accounts. For example, an artist account and 2 collector accounts to demonstrate how an artist could sell his art, and the collector or a fan who's interested in this art can buy this art. So now I'm going to create an NFT token. Imagine this could be a painting from Leonardo da Vinci, right? So he wants to sell Mona Lisa painting. Or rather, I know that he wouldn't, but yeah, let's say. Then he creates the painting, and then he specifies the purchase margin. Let's say if it is 100 Lisk or 200 Lisk. And then he keeps the purchase margin. Here you could see we have the new dynamic fee system. Imagine if you have a lot of traffic in your application, you could increase the fees to 5 cents, and then, or you could also use 1 or any other fee in order for it to be processed earlier. So I'm going to use the lower fee and then specify the passphrase of the account of the artist. So now I have created the NFT token, Mona Lisa painting. So now let's go and see. So as you can see, the transaction was accepted and included in the block. And this information was tracked by the NFT plugin, and then the UI rendered the information. So here you can see our new Lisk address system. And you can see the NFT history. So now I'm going to purchase this painting by specifying the passphrase and then providing the minimum purchase value. So now the painting ownership from the artist is transferred to the collector, which is me. So as you can see from the NFT history here, so the ownership got transferred to mine. So now let's say Shu wants to purchase this art painting from me. So then he will specify his account passphrase and then provide the purchase value and then the fee. And there you go. So the ownership got transferred from me to Shu now. So in the history, you can see earlier the artist created the painting and then put on sale. And as a collector, I bought it. And then from me, Shu bought it. So this is how easy and simple to build any blockchain application, not only NFT, using our Lisk SDK. I encourage you to try out our new Lisk SDK coming in December. And with that, let's see the overview of what we just built. So this is what, in theory, we have built, which is like transaction, which mutates the account state, and then it is encompassed by the module. And then plugin watches all this transaction happening on the blockchain, and then capture the information, provide the metadata to the user interface. So following some of the use cases that you could try to build using our Lisk SDK, you could build a virtual asset. You could build another CryptoKitty, like in collectibles. You could build a real-life fantasy sport like Sorare, and event tickets, or digital identities. Thank you all. You can follow our documentation, and then I am going to upload this example into the Lisk SDKs. And then you could also always reach us in the Lisk chat for any questions if you have, or any support that you need to build your blockchain application. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manu. I don't know what you think, but in my opinion, for building a blockchain application, which is still essentially like rocket science, this seemed super simple and accessible. After all, accessible is one of our core values here at Lisk. Next up are the two videos of our Lisk community members. The first one will be from Endro. He will tell you more about the Arcado network. Have fun.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the presentation about Arcado. For those of you who are not familiar with our project, this is the perfect walkthrough from Lisk Builders program to where we are going. My name is Tom. You can find all my details and information on endro.io. And together with Michiel Mulders, we have participated in the Lisk Builders program in July 2020. If you want to read up on what we actually achieved, there is a blog post on lisk.io/blog/apps/building Arcado network. To start the presentation, we wanted to emphasize why we used Lisk SDK and why we signed up for the Lisk Builders program. Now, the most specific reason why we entered was that the SDK has a modular system and everything is JavaScript. On the left-hand side, you see an architecture overview, but let's not go into detail and come back on that part. Now, what issue did we try and tackle? In Arcado's case, we wanted to create a decentralized reward system, more in specific tournaments, for any multiplayer game by providing a generic API. When we look at how a user journey was looking like, we had 5 steps. We had the join tournament. A user would pay an entry fee upon joining. A tournament creator was responsible for starting one. Then the user would play a tournament on a remote gaming environment. Then a tournament creator would publish results on what happened on the remote server, and funds are automatically sent to the first, second, and third winner in a custom transaction. Talking about custom transaction, here's how it looked in code, where we have a participants list of a tournament, where we push the address, the given address, update the asset store, we subtract the fee from a user balance, and we update the account. Step 2 was to start a tournament, where it was a very easy custom transaction where we toggle between status, which has the values 0, 1, or 2, where 1 is started. Step 4 was to stop a tournament, which status equals 2, update the asset store, of course. And step 5 was the prize pool distribution. This one was a tricky part, where we have all entries, total sum of all entry fees, and distributed according to the distribution given by a tournament creator. So first player receives funds, second player also receives, and third player also gets his share of the pie. How did that look in practice? We had 3 repositories where we had transaction repositories to remove code duplication, published those transactions to NPM, and then we have 2 applications where Arcado Desktop was for users and the Arcado SDK could be used for game developers. Our result was a lightweight blockchain with 466 JavaScript lines, 4 transactions, and it was production ready. Production ready was not pursued as we were in a proof of concept environment back then. The outcome of the Lisk Builders program was one awesome product, global exposure with a blog post that received a lot of traction. We had an LCU Lisk Center Utrecht presentation that organizes weekly meetups with the community, and we had a lot of social media traction. Additionally, Lisk provides 2,500 Swiss francs, which is also awesome, and we had a lot of community support. The community support was actually a very important one for us, as we had a lot of feedback on a specific step in our architecture. More specifically, step 3 and 4, where a gamer plays on a remote environment, and then we trust a tournament creator to publish those results in a correct manner. Now, in blockchain, it is very difficult to trust people, so this was an issue that needs to be tackled before we ever would go live. Now, let's introduce our new endeavor, that is multiplayer networking. And it's actually a layer 2 solution that renders multiplayer worlds where trust, scalability, and verification are the driving responsibilities. Let's not go too deep in theory, but let's look in practice in our user journey. So step 1, similar to our previous proof of concept, a user joins the tournament by registering and paying an entry fee. Next was the start tournament, and instead of having a person activating and toggling between a status, we have actually the tournament context giving rise to itself. So we have the sidechain data layer that contains lobby room ID and date time. Clients and game server layer are aware of what needs to happen. So step 3 is actually play the tournament in our architecture. So our game server layer handles multiplayer connectivity, and the game world state is stored in a in-game database. Player will play his tournament and maybe die, maybe win. So publishing results will also go automatically, as we have authoritative game servers that are responsible for publishing the results. Now, in detail, what happens is that there's happening a compilation of the game world state to a custom transaction, and publication is happening of the results and the metadata, where it happened on which game server, and much more in detail discussed in future blog posts. Step 5 was the price pool distribution, but actually nothing happens on that side, as it's still the same custom transaction, but another authoritative game server is executing this one instead of a person. To wrap things up, Arcado is trying to create a limitless gaming universe where game clients can provide the imagination, and we provide a interconnected data storage, multiplayer networking, and out-of-the-box gamification with our tournaments. Now to come back on why we actually used the Lisk SDK for Arcado. Similar to before, we wanted to have the modularity, understandable code, and everything in JavaScript. As you can see, our game servers are also using Lisk submodules, and we have the sidechain node that also has HTTP plugins and additional modules that will be created. So that was it. Thank you at Lisk for hosting us in this presentation. Thank you for your attention. Our next town hall is December 7th, 2020. and more information can be found on arcado.network. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Endro. I really like the idea and we wish you all the best with your new project. Next one up is Fernando with the FIT project. Really looking forward to that one as well.
Hello everyone, greetings from Argentina. I hope you've been enjoying the event so far. My name is Fernando Tadakuma. I'm one of the co-founders of Woza Labs. And before moving on with my presentation, I'd like to say congratulations to the Lisk team for opening the new center in Berlin. I really hope there are many more to come. During the following minutes, I'll do a quick recap of our experience as part of the Lisk Builders program, where we've made a small proof of concept of a food traceability solution. Luckily for us, that POC is now turning into a real product. So just to give you some context, I'd like to tell you a bit more about ourselves and the reason we chose Lisk for this project.
Here's a picture so you can put a face to a name. Some of you might recognize my associate, Sebastián Priolo, who gave last month's talk at the Lisk community meetup. If you would like to hear a more detailed explanation of the topics of this presentation, you can check the recording on Lisk Utrecht Center's YouTube channel. Sebas and I started Woza a couple of months ago, and our goal is to create a fully unified platform to drive innovation. Now, the reason we're pursuing this goal and the problem we want to fix is that the majority of digital transformation and innovation projects fail. There are many reasons for these failures. For example, the lack of skills in-house or the complexity of the chosen tools and stack. These problems are most notorious in traditional companies that can't keep up with the pace of tech. So our mission is to simplify and accelerate change so that these failures become successes. And for that we focus on 4 main areas that we call building blocks, which provide the biggest impact to tip the scale. These are data, geospatial analytics, cognitive computing, and the reason we are here today, distributed ledgers. We already have a couple of products developed in the intersection of the first 3 building blocks, as we have been working on those areas in different jobs for the last 10 years. But we were still evaluating different distributed ledgers for our next product, and that's when we stumbled upon Lisk, and it was quite a pleasant surprise. The first thing that piqued our interest was the great documentation, which was quite easy to follow thanks to the fleshed out examples. The second is that the SDK is written in JavaScript, which makes it easy to grok and test. And the last and most important factor was the Lisk team and the community. At every question we had, they gave us on-point answers, tips, recommendations, and they even linked us to people in the same region so that they could tell us their experience. That attention to detail and the rapid growth of the community reassured us that the project wouldn't end up as abandonware in the near future. Once we decided to move on with Lisk, we chose to focus our proof of concept on the food vertical. There are a couple of reasons for this choice. For example, there's a growing demand from consumers to know more about what they are actually eating. They want to know the origin of the ingredients of the product and if it's sustainable. Also, food traceability will probably be mandatory during the next decade. If we take into account what I said earlier, that 70% of digital transformation and innovation projects fail, there will be a need for tools to give a chance for small and medium companies. The most important reason is that we have previous experience working with companies in the food industry, so much that one of our clients heard about what we were doing with the proof of concept and decided to adopt it and turn it into a real product. That client is FitMarket, an e-commerce for healthy food in Argentina that has recently opened their new branch in Switzerland. They wanted to give more information, more transparency to their clients, as well as offer a new communication channel for their suppliers, the regional producers, so that they could show what makes them special and how do their products differ from mass-produced products. To give shape to the app, we first had to understand what they did right now and what would change to support the app. As you can see on the diagram on the left side, FitMarket does some things differently from others. Before they accept any new supplier, they check if their ingredients and processes are okay. So a distributed ledger will help them onboard third-party laboratories and NGOs so that they can certify this information too. When it's possible, they also map the origin of the ingredients and check if it proceeds from deforested areas or burnt fields. Each of these interactions were mapped into a custom transaction using Lisk's SDK. I'll show a few in a few seconds together with a prototype, but in case you want to check a more detailed explanation of each one, there's an article on Lisk's blog that has more details of the proof of concept and the code. Once we understood what they wanted, we turned the concept into a prototype that looks like this. That demo reel might have been too quick, so let's go step by step with this prototype. This screen hasn't been translated yet, but it displays a small welcome message and instructions to scan a QR code to see the product's information. But for this prototype, we've decided to use barcodes instead. Although QR codes that encode a barcode and batch ID can give more details about the product, most producers have tons of packages bought in advance, so it'll be a gradual process to change that. Anyway, if you check our custom transactions, you'll see that we've saved barcode and batch IDs for the future use. In case the product is not registered, you'll see a small error message. Otherwise, it displays the product's summary page. And if you click the slider on top, you'll see all the usual information of the product, such as brand, name, some pictures, a description, and list of ingredients. The most important section here is at the bottom, where you can see a couple of badges that Fit has assigned to the product, certifying their characteristics. Another important section is the map, which is being worked on to expand it. This is the reason why a couple of our custom transactions, like registered producer, require geospatial information. With that data, we can map them, check that they are local producers, see deforested areas, and calculate travel distances and their carbon footprint. Here are our next steps. We want to add more sustainability information to visualize it on the map. Also adapt the project for Feedmarker's branch in Switzerland, where they only sell locally produced goods. We want to test and add integrations with different blockchains and evangelize Lisk as a better alternative to establish food traceability chains. I won't name it because I don't think it's allowed here, but the most established blockchain for food takes around 4 to 5 months to give you a license so you can try it.
I hope you found what I have shared with you all to be of use and interest. Now, if you have any questions, you can find us on Lisk's Discord server as Seba and Ferwoza, so feel free to speak us there. Thank you very much for your time. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Fernando. I hope that your proof of concept will become a real blockchain application in the future on Lisk. All right. The moment everyone has waited for is here. Without further ado, please welcome Alessandro to the stage.
Hello, everyone, and thank you again for joining us today. I'm Alessandro Ricottone, and I'm a research scientist here at Lisk. Today, I'm going to give you a first glimpse at Lisk Interoperability. 2020 has been a very important year for the development side of Lisk with the implementation of the new SDK. But it's been a busy year also on the research side, with the research team focusing completely on interoperability. We structure our research in 4 milestones. In the first milestone, the state-of-the-art overview, we performed a survey of the research paper and the available technologies in the ecosystem. We obtained a vast knowledge of what is possible today, and we moved then to the second milestone, interoperability direction. In this milestone, we identified and analyzed a set of feasible solutions, and we reached a decision for a general direction for Lisk interoperability. In milestone 3, specification details, we are researching, discussing, and drafting all the interoperability specifications. Interoperability is a very complex topic. We identified more than 10 different pieces that all have to work together in order to have a successful interoperability protocol. As part of this milestone, we will reach a final decisions on these specifications. Finally, in milestone 4, we will move to the interoperability LIPs. For those of you who don't know them, LIPs, the Lisk improvement protocols, are the way in which our community can participate in researching and proposing improvements to the Lisk protocol. As part of this milestone, we will draft the specifications with several LIPs, and then we will go through the usual established review process. Right now, we are finalizing milestone 3. But without further ado, let's start talk about interoperability. And let's start by asking a question: what is interoperability? In a nutshell, we can say that two blockchains are interoperable if a transaction in one chain can have an effect in the other chain. As an example, a transaction T1, here in green, in chain 1, is first included in chain 1 and then has an effect later on chain 2. Vice versa, a transaction T2, here in yellow, is first included on chain 2 and then has an effect on chain 1. Let's look at a concrete example and take a transfer of 100 Lisk tokens from the main chain to a side chain. The effect on chain 1, the main chain, would be to debit the user with 100 Lisk, and the effect on chain 2, the side chain, would be to then credit the user with the 100 Lisk. A very important property that we want for these cross-chain transactions is atomicity. Atomicity means that the transaction effects have to happen either on both chains or in none. In this specific case, it would mean that if something goes wrong on the sidechain, we do not want to debit the user with 100 Lisk on main chain without crediting them on the sidechain. And then, as a result, we would have nothing happen at all in this case. The general technique that we use to achieve interoperability are cross-chain updates. This is a general technique that allows us to include information from one chain into another chain. These cross-chain updates will contain some general chain information and the cross-chain transactions. In this diagram here, I show some finalized blocks here in pink in the chain 1. Information and cross-chain transactions from these finalized blocks are packed together in a single cross-chain update that then is included on chain 2 as a special transaction and processed as part of the normal transaction processing. In particular, the technique that we use to achieve interoperability from the Lisk main chain to a side chain are cross-chain updates from the main chain. In cross-chain updates from the main chain, we pack together all the cross-chain transactions that are targeting the side chain. Then the cross-chain update is signed by the main chain delegates and is posted on the side chain. Finally, its effects will be applied on the side chain. In this example here, the cross-chain update in blue will then contain the main chain state, or some information about the main chain, and the cross-chain transactions, again, from the main chain to the side chain. In the other direction, the technique that we use to have interoperability from a side chain to the Lisk main chain are cross-chain updates from the side chain. Here instead, we pack all the cross-chain transactions that are coming from the side chain. The cross-chain update is signed by the sidechain validators, and then is included on the main chain, where its effects are applied. The cross-chain update, here in pink, will contain the sidechain state and the cross-chain transactions from the sidechain. Finally, we can combine these techniques together to achieve communication from a sidechain to another sidechain. In this case, the cross-chain transactions, in this example from sidechain 1, are included in a cross-chain update that is posted on main chain. And then another cross-chain update from the main chain to sidechain 2 will also contain these cross-chain transactions from the original cross-chain update that will finally reach sidechain 2, where their effect will be applied. So we see here a very important feature. Cross-chain transaction will be routed by the main chain, even for this case of sidechain to sidechain communication. Let me summarize now what are the most important features of cross-chain updates. They're scalable. They allow us to have no hard protocol bound on the number of sidechains that can connect to the main chain and participate into interoperability. They're flexible. Sidechains can post cross-chain updates only when it is needed, meaning that if there are no cross-chain transactions, there will be no need to post them. They're secure because cross-chain updates will be signed either by main chain delegates or by the sidechain validators. They're fast. As I showed you before, as soon as a block is finalized, the cross-chain transactions that were included in the block can already be packed in a cross-chain update that can be posted in another chain. Finally, they are efficient, because the main chain will only relays cross-chain custom transactions without actually processing them. As part of Lisk Interoperability, we're specifying 2 new transactions. The first one, the cross-chain token transfer. Among other properties that are shared by other transactions, such as the sender public key, we have the amount, the recipient chain address, and the recipient address. As for a normal balance transfer, the amount allows a user to specify how many Lisk they want to move. And the recipient address specifies the target address that will receive these funds. But we see here that there is a new property, the recipient chain address. This recipient chain address will specify the target chain where these funds will be moved to. With this transaction, users will be able to move their LSK tokens within the entire ecosystem. And this transaction will be part of the global protocol of the ecosystem, meaning that every chain in the Lisk ecosystem will be able to process it. The second transaction that we'll specify is the cross-chain custom transaction. This transaction contains the custom data property. This property encapsulates the data that is needed for a custom transaction, meaning that developers can create their own custom transaction and then immediately upgrading it to a cross-chain custom transaction just by including it into the custom data. Let me illustrate you the power of Lisk Interoperability. Let's look at a concrete example. Our story here starts from the main chain, where a user has some funds. The first thing they do, they move some Lisk tokens to an exchange and swaps them for a fungible token, here indicated by these coins in silver. This exchange is just a sidechain that is connected to the main chain via the interoperability protocol. In the second step, the user sends its funds from these new fungible token funds from the exchange sidechain to the prediction market sidechain with a custom cross-chain transaction. In the prediction market sidechain, the user can bet against the outcome of a certain event. For example, in this case, they bet against the winner of the Nobel Prize in Physics for the year 2020, and they say that it will be Roger Penrose. In the third step, an Oracle sidechain feeds external information, again with a cross-chain custom transaction, to the prediction market sidechain. And indeed, they will feed the information that Penrose won the Nobel Prize in Physics. Finally, the prediction market can now process the bet, and the user can redeem their fund. What we saw here is really the power of interoperability, where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. These sidechains achieved new features that they didn't have using interoperability to communicate with each other. We saw that the Lisk balance transfer will be the common denominator of the whole ecosystem, where to initiate custom transactions on a sidechain, user will first move Lisk funds to the sidechain. And then using cross-chain custom transactions, they will start to use interoperability. Let me summarize what will be the features of Lisk Interoperability, starting from the main chain. The Lisk main chain will have a key role in the ecosystem. All sidechains will require a registration on the main chain to participate into interoperability. Along with this registration, sidechains will receive an account on the main chain, where all the relevant information will be stored. All cross-chain transactions are routed via the main chain. As I showed you before, if a user wants to send a transaction from a sidechain to another sidechain, these transactions will go through the main chain. Regarding custom tokens, the main chain will only support Lisk tokens That doesn't mean that custom tokens cannot be created and used on a sidechain. That just means that they cannot be stored on the main chain, since the main chain has no way of knowing what is the protocol supporting these custom tokens. So these custom tokens will just go through the main chain to reach any sidechain that is compatible with them. Let's look at the sidechain point of view now. Sidechains will be customizable. Regarding block rewards, developers can choose either to have no block rewards at all or to have a custom block rewards using native sidechain tokens. For the consensus part, this will also be customizable. Out of the box, the SDK will provide a module for proof of authority and for the delegated proof of stake that will also be based on sidechain tokens. But of course, developers can create whatever consensus algorithm they want and implement it in their sidechains. Custom tokens, as I mentioned before, will be supported in sidechains and can move freely between all the sidechains that support their protocol. When we designed interoperability, we wanted to give it a strong sense of ecosystem. That's why the Lisk token will be the common token of the whole ecosystem, and it will be possible to move it everywhere with a cross-chain balance transfer. Regarding fees, all transaction fees for every transaction in all sidechain will be paid in Lisk. And regarding the address system, user will be able to retain the same address everywhere, meaning that they will only have to remember one single key pair to sign and send a transaction anywhere in the ecosystem. Let me conclude now with an outlook. As I mentioned before, we're currently finalizing milestone 3. All interoperability leaps will be revealed in the next spring in Lisk.js 2021. Finally, we are currently evaluating the possibility of having an open source patent registration. For these reasons, we're not able to give too many technical details today. And with that, I thank you, and I'll leave you here with a couple links to the Lisk Research Forum and to the LIPS repository on GitHub. Check it out.
Thank you, Alessandro. Yeah, what can I say? Even though it's just the first glimpse, I love it. Really, really good. The Lisk blockchain will become the directory for all Lisk sidechains. The LSK token will play a central part on the Lisk blockchain application platform and will be used for all transaction fees on all sidechains. We will be able to facilitate main chain to sidechain, sidechain to main chain, and sidechain to sidechain cross-chain transactions. And the best of all of it, it comes already next year as part of the Lisk research is being revealed at Lisk.js 2021 in spring. All right, so that's it with the presentations for tonight. We will now have to take 10 minutes as a break to clean up here our space and set it up for the Q&A session and to sort through your questions. See you in 10 minutes. Welcome back. We had an overwhelming number of questions, more general, targeted to me, or just the general Lisk project. These will be answered in a video next week. Today we focus on 3 core aspects: marketing and the Lisk Center Berlin, development and the latest Lisk SDK and Core, and research with the interoperability. First one up is Monica with marketing and questions about the Lisk Center Berlin. Hello.
Thank you. Hello. Hi, everyone.
All right, let's just jump straight into it. The first question is from Minions, and he is asking how many minions are in the new office.
Minions. Yes, I believe we have 1 minion. We took it over from the previous office, and it stays there in the Light Curve office.
And how many do we have here in the Lisk Center?
None, I believe, so far. But then I hope you come and visit us and bring one yourself.
Looking forward to that. All right, next one is from Anone Move. He is asking what kind of 3D printer we have here in the Lisk Center, and if we would like to have his drawings of the Lisk sunglasses.
Yeah, so I believe the name is AnyCubic. I'm not a specialist in 3D printing, but I really hope that you will visit us in the Lisk Center and will show me how to actually print your glasses.
And what was the goal of having here a 3D printer in the Lisk Center Berlin?
Yeah, so we wanted people to basically bring their ideas to life, so they can play around, they can basically print anything 3D.
And it's certainly also a strategy to attract technical people and developers just into the space to use it not only for blockchain, but also for these kind of things, right?
Yeah, we also have several cables and sensors, and you can just play around with them with Raspberry Pis and so on. They are all available here on the Lisk Experience table. So I hope you will use them to bring your ideas to life, as I said.
All right. The next question is from, I'm not sure how to pronounce that name, but Hajo. And he's asking a more general marketing question. So what is the plan for public relations and updating the community, developers, and investors on more mainstream media, like let's say YouTube? That's something he would really like to know.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. We did YouTube in the past, and we definitely would like to go back on YouTube next year. We are currently working on the strategy, and we are also listening to our community to see what they prefer to have. So that's definitely it's coming back next year in different forms. We would also like to focus on developer tutorials, so people who prefer to see something recorded. We will also have updates potentially on YouTube. So that's definitely something that's coming back.
So the Lisk strategy for next year is currently work in progress. Is there any way for the community maybe to share their ideas, maybe on Lisk chat or so with us, so we can actually take their feedback on board?
Yeah, so what we did actually this year, in the beginning of the year, we had some calls, and we also talked with our friends from Lisk Center Utrecht, and we tried to listen to make them happy, to see what they want. We also introduced Lisk Achievements, for example, every month, where we publish a blog post, so they wanted to know more of what we are doing on the marketing side. So I think Lisk chat is definitely the best channel to use for that, and we really hope that you send ideas or feedback, and we will definitely include it in our strategy for next year.
Okay, cool. You heard her. Okay, next question is from Ionut, or Ionut. I'm not sure again how to pronounce his name. So he's saying that Lisk is actually not really participating on more diverse technical conferences, which also happen online currently. For example, he is pointing out Dystopia Labs. And he wants to know if there's any particular reason why this is the case, or is it just because our platform is not ready yet, and we can basically, or they can expect that to happen in the future?
Yeah, so Ionuț, my fellow Romanian. Yes, that's true. We, as you probably know already, we try to focus as much as possible on developers. And that's also how we started now with Lisk Updates, having it online here at Lisk Center, having the Lisk Center also focused on developers and developer events as well. We've been this year on We Are Developers Live Week with Nazar. And I think that's definitely the focus for next year as well. So developer conferences, our own developer workshops, hackathons, so really focusing on developers this year.
So it seems like our focus really is more on developers and not like on futurists or technology like lovers who would attend like a conference like Dystopia Labs. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's better to keep the focus and to see production-ready applications built with SDK. So that's our main focus.
Mm-hmm. And I think conducting events purely online or partially online was something we've not really done before so many times, but today we're doing it. We had some technical problems, but since around the middle or after a few, like 20 minutes or so, everything runs smoothly. What do you think? Like, are like purely digital conferences and events like definitely something for us in the future to take a look at?
Yes, so I believe, we are learning, as you see. We try to get better and better. Myself, I'm not a fan of online events because I really believe, as Max said, as in-person interaction, and especially for Hackathon, for Coding Challenge. We also saw last year at Lisk.js, there was a great success. But I think this is the future. And as we see now, everyone is moving online. We would like to make use of this stage here in the Lisk Center for anyone to host their events from our community and for us to, as I said, also for the community to give them updates, to come here on stage, maybe not as professional as now, but maybe more down to earth, casual, to update you guys on what we are working on. So yes, that's definitely the future.
You're saying it's the future, and we definitely don't want to be left behind. So I think there's more to come. You mentioned also this Lisk Center for other meetups or events to be available. Could you maybe say a few words about that as well?
Yes, we've already been in touch with local developer meetups, TypeScript, JavaScript, Berlin.js, and other meetup groups. We plan to host them here. They are always searching for location, and I think that's the best for Lisk. We would like to host them here to also show them around and to onboard them with Lisk. So yes, that's definitely what we plan to do next year. Fingers crossed that the regulations will allow us.
And all these meetups you just mentioned, they're mostly just like projects or like fan efforts from individuals. They don't have money. Would they have to pay something, or what could we even offer them something on top next to this event location?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. We would like to host them here for free. We want to basically bring the JavaScript developers to us, and we think this will also contribute to the adoption. And I think, hosting them for free, it's the way to go. We also plan to, provide with food and drinks if, they are willing to do so.
Mm-hmm. So you heard it. If you have a meetup here in Berlin or very close by, and you need always a new location, or you just can't find anything so far, the Lisk Center Berlin is here for you. It's for free, and we might even include some kind of sponsorship for pizza, beer, or whatever you might require. Awesome. All right, the last question for tonight for you, Monica. This one is from Carbonara. So he would like to know if there would be any concrete efforts or improvements from us that we are, again, more part of the community. He's feeling like we're leaving them alone and neglecting them in some way or form. And he would like to see more efforts going into that we focus again more on the community itself. And do you have any words about that, how this could maybe change for the next year?
Yeah, it's indeed something that we need to work on, and we want to hear people being happy and feeling that they are part of this community and engaged. And as I said, I think the first thing that we want to do also for next year is to listen to your feedback. And to talk to you, to see what exactly you are missing. We would like to be more present. As you also saw, this year we had AMAs on Lisk Chat. That's also something that we did for you, for the community members, and we plan to do even more next year. So that's definitely, you will be heard in the upcoming months.
All right, that's good to hear. You just have to know the Lisk community is of utmost importance for us. Without community, no one would build anything in the future on the Lisk platform. So you can count on it. It's just very difficult to always include you in the conversation, but just make sure to hang out on Lisk Chat and provide us feedback. Tell us what you want, what you would like to see.
I also believe that opening Lisk Center Berlin is the first step to our community. We try to be closer to you. And yeah, having events from here for the community, that's also a step forward.
All right, sounds really good. Thank you so much, Monica. We will now continue with the next Q&A session.
Thank you for the questions.
All right, next one is from the development team, Shu and Manu. Please come to the stage. All right, perfect. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Good. Great, perfect. So let's jump right into the first question. And this time I also know how to pronounce the name. So Jonat, he would like to know, let me read that question. So he would like to know, why would developers or companies choose the Lisk SDK and not any of the competing SDKs for blockchain applications out there? For building their own blockchain. Why would they choose Lisk in front of other competitors? He would really like to know some of the advantages Lisk brings when compared to the others mentioned above, which would be the Cosmos and Polkadot SDKs. And this question I would like to raise to you, Manu.
Yeah, sure. I think I would like to answer this question by explaining the demonstration that I earlier did. So you could see that, we have the new architecture with the, modularized, SDK, where you have on-chain, off-chain, and you have the communication layer. So it allows you to flexibly build your application, blockchain application. I think it only shows that in the last 8 months, our developer team has implemented all of the slips, and this progress shows that, any other project, for that matter, we are moving ahead like never before. And this flexible architecture and then communication layer will only grow and then extend with the community support, building more and more tools, for the adoption. So that is how I would say that, we could grow and then compete. I would encourage all of you to try our SDK and build modules and plugins so that we have the ecosystem grow. That is the only way that we grow beyond. We will try our best to build more and more rapidly. But as I said, please try out SDK and then build more features and grow the ecosystem.
All right. Sounds really good. So you mentioned that in the last 8 months we have made dramatic improvements in our development speed. And I guess that was partially a reason or due to the research team providing libs, which are research papers about individual protocol changes we would like to implement. Yeah. But also we just had to find our ways to improve our development processes. Yeah. Do you think that the choice of language, JavaScript, TypeScript, Node.js as a runtime, has any impact on the speed of how blockchain applications can be delivered?
I totally agree. So there are, as Max mentioned earlier, that we have 8th time JavaScript being voted one of the most popular languages. I've been working in JavaScript since 2013. So learning curve for JavaScript and TypeScript is easy compared to Rust or Go. But they have their own advantages. I'm not saying that. But JavaScript also has been improved a lot. And we have type system with TypeScript. So as I said, the Lisk has changed its development approach in the recent time. Oliver being in the forefront, to establish the development process is the result you could see that how our development has moved this faster. And a research team always being upfront with sharing the knowledge, making sure that we understand what the lib is about so that we could develop faster. And they will be doing that for our interoperability. And you will see the results in the coming days.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned Oliver, who is putting in tremendous efforts to just make the processes leaner so that development can accelerate. And I think back in the day, many people were criticizing JavaScript as a choice, and they always mentioned speed, the lack of big number support, and the lack of typed variables. But I think speed-wise, it's improving every year, and the other two should also be solved by now, right?
Yes. I think with the SDK 5.0 coming in, we will establish and show you how the SDK performance has improved. I think you will not believe it is the magnitude of number is increased a lot. We have removed the Postgres database, and then we have the embedded database, and then the transaction processing capabilities is increased a lot. So yeah, as I said, please try out the SDK that we have built, and then you will be amazed with what we have done. I'm looking forward to your feedback after the release of the SDK in December.
Sounds awesome. Keeping that in mind, I have a question for you, Shu. If you would build Lisk again, after we heard everything what Manu was saying, would you still choose JavaScript for the core protocol, for the Lisk SDK, or would you go with another language which are currently a bit in the hype, like Go or Rust? Keeping in mind also that Lisk is so much about accessibility and being simple.
Yep. The answer is pretty easy. I would choose JavaScript, TypeScript. So the blockchain is about protocol, and you can build the Lisk protocol in any language. But we care about accessibility. We care about how easy to build a blockchain application, and we want developer to create more application, right? So, considering that, JavaScript has, as Manu and you said, it's most used language. So, I think it will be kind of easy choice to make as a product, but also it has kind of difficult part for the developer of creating the SDK itself. Like the Golang or Rust has a lot of feature that to build the SDK safe. And that we, as a SDK developer, we need to take care of those features. So that is kind of hard part, but for the user, I think it's always better to use the JavaScript.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that in case of JavaScript, the developer has to take care of some aspects in regards to security themselves, while in Go or Rust, this comes natively with the language.
So the security comes from the SDK. So as an SDK developer like us, needs to take care of all those security issues so that user don't have to think about all those details.
Okay, that sounds good. Both questions were by Yonut. Let's move on with the next question. So this one is a funny one, keeping our history in mind. Sander Drenp is asking, and I want to point that to you, Manu, if we can give any indication when the mainnet will be released, which means Lisk Core 3.0, which was built with the Lisk SDK version 5.
We have developed and then tested internally a month ago, and we have been under the Lisk audit, external audit at the moment. We are hoping that the audit to complete next month, and then we will be doing some more internal testing before the release. I cannot give the exact date to you, but like we want to ensure the SDK is at most secure, and then that can be done through more testing. And then, like you could hope the release happen next year somewhere in the beginning, hopefully, or like the timeline will coming soon. Yeah. So. Yeah.
So you're saying that we're still waiting for the security audit, which was announced today by Lisk Authority, is being concluded, which will happen in December. We don't know yet what comes out of that in detail, at least. But also, Shu was saying that we are going to launch the next BetaNet version 5 in December as well, as soon as possible. So I think this shows also that we're trying to accelerate the process. But after that, it's still testnet. And you never know in development how long something takes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But definitely next year, guys. All right. Then this one, Shu, I would like you to answer. Not sure who asked this question, but what can be built with the modules you explained as on-chain and with plugins you explained as off-chain? What can you build with these two constructs?
Yeah, I explained in my presentation a little bit, but for example, in Mojo, some of the community members were building stable coins. Smart contract platform is also possible, and we're going to build the proof of authority plugin modules. I think all those things are possible. I cannot really think what is not possible that exists right now for the module. And plugins are basically the improvement of the blockchain logic or blockchain protocol. So you could basically build anything, but I think something that I would like to see is the Oracle built together with the module. That'll be very interesting.
So essentially you wouldn't know what's not possible. Is that because essentially, well, it's similar, like, not sure if what I'm saying now, but is it similar to like a deterministic Turing machine where you can just implement anything you would like to implement?
Yeah, as long as it's deterministic and about the state changes, I think it should be possible.
Okay, that's really good to hear. And I think with the Oracle, there is even a project already work in progress within our community. So let's see what comes out of that. But I'm sure, like, starting with the Lisk SDK 5.0, there will be a ton of new developers joining and trying to just give it a try. All right. Then I'm coming back to you, Manu. Again, not sure now who asked this question, but what kind of modules are planned for the future? Because currently we are developing, or at least testing, the Lisk SDK 5.0 release and hoping to complete the Lisk Core 3.0 release. But the future is pretty big for Lisk overall. We have nearly unlimited options once interoperability is implemented. So can you let us know what kind of modules might already be planned?
At the moment, we do not have any plan for the modules. However, as you mentioned, the current scope is for focusing on releasing the 5.0 and Lisk Core 3.0. However, like keeping interoperability in mind, we have proof of authority module and then extending the depos module with some more properties. So as you earlier mentioned, like you could build any module with our Lisk SDK. So with consolidating the interoperability in mind, so it will be even more evident with that, like what other modules you could build, and then we will have some more demonstration, in the coming days once we have them.
Isn't it somewhat a big advantage also of JavaScript that you have these libraries which everyone can basically reuse? And is it similar with these modules?
Yes, that's a very good question. I think you could extend the modules that we have, also modify the modules, and you could plug and play. So it is as simple as that. As I mentioned earlier, if you do not want, let's say, a token module or a sequence module that we have, you could take out the sequence module and then build your own custom sequence module and then add it on top of that. So The SDK is flexible. That's why I was saying that our project is more competitive than ever before. Yeah.
Awesome. Really looking forward to all the developers just joining in development and developing their own modules, plugins, and then it just explodes in terms of functionality. The last question for you, Shu, is from John Wick, our dear community member. He would like to know, so by Q1, so next year, somewhere in the spring, not necessarily Q1, but somewhere in the spring time, we will show all the libs for Lisk Interoperability. And is there an idea how long actually the implementation would take?
That is a bit hard question. So we don't have the full specification of the lib, so we can't really estimate how much it will take to develop, right? But our Lisk goal is to have accessible and simple protocol too. So considering that, I think it would be leaner or easier to implement than other complex protocol. And also, as Manu mentioned earlier, we have worked a lot on the development process with Oliver, and I have a confidence that we will move on smoothly with interoperability development.
Nice. So you're saying we are striving for an accessible and simple to understand interoperability protocol, and I'm sure that later on we will hear more about that when the researchers join the stage. Great. That was the last question. Thank you so much, both of you guys. And now we are moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And now the last Q&A session coming up with the research team. I welcome Alessandro and Jan to the stage. So we have received so many questions, so that's why you saw already I was making the other sessions a bit longer, and I will do exactly the same thing now with the interoperability Q&A. Alessandro, you know, on the left side is Jan Hackfeld. He is head of research. The Lisk community knows him already, but whoever is not familiar with them now is a very important figure together with the whole research team in figuring out how we want to achieve Lisk interoperability. And for you, Jan, is also the first question from Anenomove. He would like to know what function will the LSK token have on sidechains? What will it be used for?
Yeah, Alessandro already touched on this question in his presentation. So all fees are paid in Lisk tokens. So this is kind of the default functionality that you can use Lisk for. And apart from that, it's to a big part up to the sidechain developer what else they want to use Lisk tokens for. So if I think of some of the community projects like Lisk Bike, for example, maybe they just want that users pay the bike rental in Lisk. So Lisk could be used just also as the payment token in the sidechain. So the idea why Lisk is supported by all sidechains is that onboarding for new users should be easy. So every user of the Lisk ecosystem should just have to hold Lisk and can transfer it to a sidechain and then should be ready to use that sidechain immediately without having to go through a complex process of having to buy some special kind of sidechain tokens. And how exactly then the mechanism is, and that totally depends on the use case. But the basis is somehow that you use Lisk for fees, and also the cross-chain updates that Alessandro has explained that are submitted to the main chain. Of course, these are transactions that have to pay fees in Lisk. Also, the cross-chain updates in the other directions, they are transactions that also pay fees in Lisk. Yeah.
All right, because I was so excited to hear what the community thinks about it. There was a bit of a confusion if the LSK token will be used only as a fee for the cross-chain transactions or for any transaction, but I think you explained it well. It will be basically the fee token for any kind of transaction, the cross-chain transaction, but also any transaction on the sidechain itself, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And this kind of answers already the next question, which I would like to point to you, Alessandro. So the user with the nickname MyFreeSetbox would like to know how we are going to add utility to the LSK token, and especially important value beyond just voting for delegates. Can you shed some light on this question?
Yeah, this connects nicely actually with what Jan just said. Basically, any sidechain will use LSK tokens for their fees, and this alone would mean that LSK tokens will be used more, increasing their value. But any new use that is developed by sidechain developers that use LSK tokens as utility token will again, add something more beyond the voting and the holding on mainchain, if you want. And again, as Jan mentioned before, at some point, if a sidechain wants to actually connect to the main chain and participate in the interoperability, they will have to send these cross-chain updates, which again use the LSK token. So all in all, interoperability, again, LSK tokens will be used across the whole ecosystem, and in total, they will acquire value just because any new idea that developers will put forward will just become a new way to use tokens.
Mm-hmm. Just for myself, as a comment also, I've done an ICO in my life already, and I think it's pretty hard, especially on the legal side. So I think what we are trying to encourage developers with is also to just use the LSK token as a means of payment or as a means for the utility aspects of a sidechain within their blockchain application. With that, they don't have to bother too much with exchanges. They don't have to bother too much with having their own token. And with that, maybe legal constructs somewhere in the world, which causes a lot of work and headaches. So there's always a focus on that from our side as well. The next question is from Unit again. Jan, I would like to ask this to you. So the interoperability we are building, and that's why we called it the Lisk Interoperability, is focused on Lisk sidechain, so within our blockchain application platform only. And he would like to know if we are planning to build bridges to Ethereum, Cosmos, Polkadot, or other blockchain application platforms to benefit from these different networks as well.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting topic that we also consider for the future. But first, we now want to get the Lisk interoperability ready and deployed on mainnet. And but afterwards, this is definitely a topic that we will look into in more detail. I think with our interoperability solution in place, it will be also give community members the opportunity to develop projects that build bridges to existing blockchains. For example, I could think of a sidechain that implements a bridge to Bitcoin and creates some wrapped Bitcoin that could then be used in the Lisk ecosystem, and which is maybe collateralized and has certain security guarantees. So we will definitely look into this, but also community members are encouraged to look into this topic. And I think the Lisk interoperability will already give a good base for developing projects that implement bridges to other existing blockchains.
Mm-hmm. I mean, looking at our SDK and looking at the interoperability solution, at least the first glimpse which was provided today, I guess the sky's the limit. Everyone could implement anything, like Shu was also saying. Really, really exciting time, and I look forward to see what actually will be implemented. Super cool. Okay, next one from Lemmy. Alessandro, what if you transfer LSK to a sidechain and that sidechain goes down indefinitely for whatever reason, like it's not available anymore, it's dead? What happens then? Are the LSK tokens lost?
Great question. So without going into technical details that also we cannot disclose right now, we're definitely told about that, and the LSK tokens will not be lost. There will be some main chain protocol to actually redeem these tokens and bring them back to the main chain. Maybe part of the reason for why we want to include the sidechain information into the main chain with a cross-chain update is actually to be able to redeem these tokens back to the main chain.
So I was mentioning that the Lisk blockchain will act somewhat like a directory for all the sidechains. So we know basically all the sidechains because they have to be registered on the main chain. And you're saying then there will definitely be a mechanism to retrieve tokens, LSK tokens, which are stuck on a sidechain, but the sidechain is not working anymore, back into the Lisk ecosystem.
Right, that's a very good analogy because LSK tokens are the tokens of the Lisk main chain, right? So the Lisk main chain will always keep track of where the LSK tokens are in the ecosystem. So if you remember before, I mentioned that a sidechain will have an account on main chain, and in this account we also store what is the total balance, for example, that is stored, that has been sent to the sidechain.
All right, that sounds really good and secure. I guess a very important aspect if you're handling multiple blockchains, which are, well, after all, immutable, right? All right, the next one to you, Jan. It's from Anonymove again. I need to decipher a little bit the question. So he would like to know who approves the transactions between the main chain and the sidechain, a sidechain and the main chain, or maybe even going from sidechain to another sidechain. Will it be the delegates of the mainnet, or will it be the delegates of the sidechain? And what happens when the mainnet goes down? So can you shed some light on that? Who approves cross-chain transactions, and what happens if the mainnet goes down?
Yeah, that's also a good question. So first of all, like if you want to send a cross-chain transaction, in the end, it's not much different than a normal transaction. So if you send a normal transaction to the Lisk mainnet, I wouldn't say approve, but the delegates just have to include it in a block, and at some point this block will be finalized. So the same will be true for a cross-chain transaction. Maybe you send 10 Lisk to a sidechain, you send this transaction to the Lisk main chain, it will be included by some main chain delegates, and after it's finalized, then a cross-chain update gets created automatically, and the sidechain could include it, and the sidechain is then also just somehow forced to process this cross-chain transaction. And the cross-chain updates, so as Alessandro explained, the cross-chain transactions, they are put together in cross-chain updates, and the cross-chain update in itself is again just like a transaction. So again here the sidechain delegates, so or in general validators, maybe the sidechain uses a proof of authority consensus, just include it in a block, and then this transaction is processed. Basically the mechanism is just the same as for other transactions. Then to the second part of the question, which was what happens if the main chain is down. So first of all, the main chain is decentralized for a reason. There are like 101 active delegates. We also have standby delegates. So it's an always-on network. So maybe a few delegates are down for a while, but they also can't be down for a very long time, because with the new DPoS system, we also have a mechanism in place to ban delegates which are offline for too long. So this is like very unlikely. And even if the main chain would be down for a while, or maybe there's just a hard fork happening and maybe just 1 or 2 hours it's not working, the sidechains would be independent. They can still process transactions, internal transactions, but also cross-chain transactions. And what happens is just that maybe you send 10 Lisp from a sidechain back to the main chain, and this would be processed by the sidechain, but as the main chain is maybe doing a hard fork or just for some reason it's actually offline, it then wouldn't react on this cross-chain update immediately, but just with a bit of delay. So as soon as the main chain would be back online and process transaction, it will also process the cross-chain updates, and therefore there's no problem at all. Yeah.
You mentioned that if the main chain would be down, the sidechains are independent and could still work. So that actually also holds true that if the main chain reaches its transaction capability limit, and it would be very expensive for transactions to be processed on the main chain, how we're seeing it with many different blockchains in the ecosystem, especially at high prices. It means essentially that the sidechain, and with that the blockchain application, is unaffected by that. Is that true to say?
Yes, so the sidechains, the internal transactions and also the cross-chain transactions are processed independently. That's how you also gain all the scalability. And of course, the sidechains have an interest to post these cross-chain updates frequently, but maybe if the main chain is very busy and the cost for posting it is too high, then they could also wait for a few hours, and that would only mean that the cross-chain transactions take a bit more time. Mm-hmm. But the processing of the sidechain would not be affected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very cool. And I think with the implementation now of one of the libs, the transaction throughput per chain is set to a value of around 1 million transactions per day right now. Is that true?
Yeah, that's will be the case for the Lisk main chain, and also I think the default in the Lisk SDK. But of course, as a sidechain developer, you could customize it if you maybe choose to have higher hardware demands on your sidechain. You may choose, I don't know, 10 times more transactions. I think also now that we move to an embedded database, it should definitely be possible to put this limit a lot higher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have, thanks to probably our code optimization, but also our choice of consensus algorithms, quite a high throughput already. The developer could set it even higher. On the main chain, I think we stayed with that number in order to keep decentralization more easy, because the blockchain grows just a certain amount of gigabytes every year this way, right? Yeah. But really excited to see that. The most successful blockchain applications in the entire industry right now just reach around like a few 100,000 transactions per day. So that's definitely possible. But then again, they are on like one chain, and in our case, it would be split. Super cool. All right, next one is from Corben. Thank you so much for the chocolate you sent to us as a present for the new office and for the Lisk Center. It was dangerously delicious. Alessandro, he wants to know who decides the fees with the transfer from sidechain to main chain and to another sidechain, or from main chain to sidechain. Who decides the fees for that?
Right. So for cross-chain transactions in general, we distinguish these two cases. The first one for cross-chain balance transfers, where the fee is just set to a protocol constant, meaning that this fee will be fixed and verified by main chain. It will be most likely very low, on the same level of a normal balance transaction, let's say. And every sidechain will accept this fee. So every sidechain will accept a cross-chain balance transfer with that fee. For custom transactions instead, that will be, again, customizable. As any normal custom transactions, developers are able to set the fee to whatever value they want. Of course, if we're looking at a sidechain to sidechain cross-chain custom transaction now, meaning that both chains actually agreed on the protocol, right? So both chains know how to process this custom transaction, and then both chains agree on what is a valid fee for the cross-chain transaction.
All right. So a lot of flexibility for the developers, but of course, whatever happens on the main chain is part of the dynamic fee system.
Yes, that is always true.
Okay, cool. Back to you, Jan. Very interesting question, which will probably highlight the power of our blockchain application platform later on. He would like to know, do custom cross-chain transactions allow you to transfer custom tokens? Like, for example, he would like to know, could you transfer an NFT or various other tokens which were created on a sidechain between multiple sidechains or onto different sidechains? Is that possible?
Yes, that will definitely be possible. That's also something we are currently researching. We are researching some standards for this kind of interoperability. Alessandro was in his presentation presenting the Lisk token transfer. That's something that all sidechains will have to support. And then there was this general cross-chain transaction. And one type of cross-chain transaction could be an NFT transfer. And we also want to have some good standard for this. And this would be something that sidechains could opt in. So not every sidechain would have to support it. Maybe for some sidechains it just doesn't make sense. Sidechains could choose to support this standard and then also store non-fungible tokens from different other sidechains. For example, a decentralized exchange, for that one, it would make sense to support this. But similarly, also for non-fungible tokens, we want to develop a standard so that also fungible tokens can be transferred throughout the ecosystem. But again, this would be more of an opt-in. So like the default would be only that every sidechain supports the Lisk token transfer.
So all the power basically to the developers of the sidechains.
Yeah.
I think this shows that we're aiming to become really an interoperable blockchain application platform, that it's possible to do that if the developer wishes to do so. All right, last question from Dev1. I saw your comment on Twitter, so you earned your goodie bag. Don't worry about that. Alessandro, so he's saying that every user will have the same Lisk address everywhere. So on the main chain and then every sidechain. So he's asking if he should register or create this address always on the main chain.
Right, so that's correct. Users will have the same address everywhere. They will just need to remember one keeper to operate in any chain. As by register, as you mentioned, I think you mean creating an account. And in general, wherever you are in the ecosystem, you will need some Lisk tokens to do stuff, right? So you may have these Lisk tokens transferred directly to your account from another account on main chain, or you can first receive these Lisk tokens on main chain and then transfer them to your account on the sidechain. That's up to you. So there is no rule for that, just that you have some Lisk tokens to actually participate into the ecosystem.
So I understand it correct? Like one address corresponds to one key or one passphrase anyway, doesn't matter where, on which chain. That's just falling back on the cryptography we're using as a default. So it doesn't matter really where this address receives a token first.
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay, pretty cool. All right, that was the last question. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's it. That was the night. That was Lisk Updates. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. And see you at the Lisk.js 2021 in spring, where we will announce a lot which will please your ears. See you soon. Ciao.